You know that feeling, right? Anxiety, that knot in your stomach, the constant worry about, well, pretty much everything. But what if there was a direct line, a way to tap into a sense of real, lasting peace? Well, today, that's what we're breaking down. We're going to dive into the practice of prayer and see what it's all about. I mean, listen to this promise from Philippians. This isn't just some nice, fluffy thought. It's practically a spiritual formula. It says you can take all your anxieties, and through this thing called prayer, what comes out the other side is a peace that doesn't even make sense. But how? How does that actually work?
Okay, so to figure that out, here's our game plan. First, we're going to define what prayer even is. Then, we'll get into why it matters so much. After that, I'll walk you through a super practical guide called ACTS. We'll also look at the common roadblocks, the things that get in the way. And then we'll finish up with a clear next step you can take, like today.
So, first things first, before we get into any complex methods or anything, let's just strip it all back to the most fundamental question.
Yeah, what is it? We throw that word around all the time, right? I'll pray for you, or I'm going to pray about it. But what are we actually talking about when we say that?
Well, here's the amazing part. It's not some magic spell or a formal speech you have to get just right. At its absolute core, prayer is just a conversation. It's a two-way street of talking and listening, and just openly sharing your heart, just like you would with someone you trust more than anyone.
And this image, this really gets to the heart of it. It's not about you standing before some intimidating, distant cosmic ruler. No, the whole idea is for it to feel like a little kid talking to their dad, a loving father. You can be totally honest, you can have complete trust, and there's absolutely no fear of saying the wrong thing.
And this right here is what makes confident prayer possible. When you start to really believe these things, that God genuinely cares for you, that He's a giver of good things, and that He actually truly delights in you. Man, that changes everything. Prayer stops feeling like a chore and starts becoming a real, honest-to-goodness conversation.
Okay, so it's a conversation with a God who loves us. Got it. But why is it so important to keep that line of communication open? I mean, what does it really accomplish?
So why does it matter? Well, the sources point to 4 really big reasons. On one level, it's all about our relationship with God. It honors Him and it pulls us closer to Him. But it also has a real impact on the world. It's one of the main ways God's power gets released. And get this, it's not even just a good suggestion. It's something we're actually told to do.
And here's a thought that might just shift your entire perspective. We often think prayer is about changing our circumstances, right? But maybe the real power is how it fundamentally changes us. The very act of talking with God, of aligning our hearts with His, actually starts to reshape our character, our desires, our whole way of seeing the world.
All right, so we've got the what and the why. Now let's get super practical with the how. How do we actually structure this conversation so it's, meaningful and not just a rambling list of wants?
Now look, there is no single right way to pray, but a lot of people have found this simple acronym, ACTS, to be an incredibly helpful roadmap to keep things balanced and focused. What's so brilliant about this model is the order. See how it works? You start with your focus totally on God. That's adoration, just praising Him for who He is. Then it turns inward with confession, a moment to get real and honest. From there, you move to thanksgiving, building up a heart of gratitude. And only then, after all that, do you get to supplication, bringing your own requests. It puts everything in perspective.
And when you do get to your requests, what can you actually pray for? The answer is so simple: anything. Your daily needs, wisdom, protection, healing for a family member. The whole idea is just so beautiful. If it's on your heart, it's on God's heart.
So we've got the why and a practical how, but let's be real. Sometimes prayer is just hard. It feels like you're talking to the ceiling. So what's that about? What gets in the way of this conversation? So what are these roadblocks? Well, a lot of the time, they're internal things, right? That nagging doubt, is anyone even listening? Or maybe it's unconfessed sin that just creates this sense of distance. Sometimes it's the static from a broken relationship with someone else. Or maybe it's just a deep down fear that we're not good enough to even show up.
But for every single one of those feelings, there's this powerful answer. We are not invited to a throne of judgment, we're invited to a throne of grace. We're told to come with confidence, not because we're so amazing, but because He is so good, and He's just waiting to meet us with mercy and help.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground,
the what, the why, the how. But knowing all this stuff doesn't do any good if we don't do something with it. So let's make this personal. Let's talk about your next step.
So just for a second, think back over everything we've talked about. What's the one thing that really stood out to you? Was it the idea that prayer is just a simple conversation? Maybe that ACTS model clicked for you. Or maybe it was that picture of approaching God with confidence. What one idea is really sticking with you?
All right, now let's turn that into action. Based on what stood out, what's one simple, practical thing you can do? Are you going to try to set aside 5 minutes tomorrow morning? Maybe try using that ACTS guide? Or hey, maybe there's something you realize you need to confess to clear the air. What's your one step?
And this brings us right back to where we started, with anxiety. So let's land the plane here with this one last question. What is one burden, one worry, one thing that's weighing you down that you will choose to intentionally hand over to God today? Because right there, that's where the conversation begins.